Hi, I'm Ron Jess for Jessfor30. I'm very excited to welcome from the University of Michigan a gentleman, as Satchel Paige said, it ain't bragging if you done it. From the University of Michigan College Football Hall of Fame, four-time All-American at Michigan, four-time first-team all Big Ten, Fiesta Bowl, Japan Bowl MVP, Michigan Athletic Hall of Honor, NFL player for the Los Angeles Rams, and oh yeah, he beat Ohio State 3 of his 4 years. Welcome, Mark Messner.
Thank you, sir. Well, that was a fun intro. It's hard to I have a hard time remembering all that.
We do our research.
Sure you do.
How is it in Bradenton, Florida, Mark?
Well, I got to say it's paradise as usual, and we just struggle every once in a while with an occasional hurricane. But other than that, it is truly paradise, and love every minute of living here.
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time on Anna Marie Island just over the bridge from you.
Well, that's it right there behind me. You know, there, well,
Yeah.
there you go. There it is. That's the island. Just on the other side.
Mark, you grew up in Heartland, Michigan, kind of a country boy. Did you fish and hunt there?
Going up there, I was a terror every morning in the summer, especially. I'd jaunt down to Dunham Lake and I'd fish, and my mom would had this triangle that she'd ring, so I'd hear it and come back and scarf some food down and go back, dig some worms up and go fishing. Then when that was done, we go in the backyard and there's a pond. We'd get turtles and we'd get frogs. Do everything you could to get something. So yes,
Yeah,
all
that's
my life
great.
I've been an outdoorsman, that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. Mark, there were some people who said you have a brother who actually had as good or more talent than you. What do you think about that?
I think they're 100% right. My younger brother, Mike, um, I mean, scouts know their stuff. And when they looked at my father plays in the NFL or played in the NFL, at this time, my younger brother was already a two-time All-American at Michigan. And they're going, you know what? It's an amazing family. And this kid is the best athlete of all of them. And
No
they weren't
kidding.
wrong.
What was
Yeah,
his name?
Michael.
Mike, is he still in Heartland?
He's still in Heartland, right on Heartland Road, as a matter of fact.
So in your sophomore year of high school, you transferred to Catholic Central to play for maybe the greatest high school football coach ever in Michigan, Tom Mack.
That was a tough transition for us because it wasn't just me. It was 7 guys, all transferred, because at that time in Heartland, the millages were failing, and we were in freshmen in high school, and being almost dang near a farming community, farmers' families and things, their kids were gone, so they were not voting for the millage, so they dropped non-varsity sports. And here I am, a sophomore, now going to be saying, okay, we got all these people going to be trying to play football and basketball and baseball for one squad. Shoot. And one of our best friends had moved to Farmington and said, you ought to try to get into CC. And 7 of us drove to Redford every morning. We'd meet at Oasis truck stop, and one parent would drive, because we were sophomores. We still didn't have our license. One parent would take the drive, spend the day in town, and drive us home. So yeah, it was 50 miles each way for high school.
No kids were ever more happy to become juniors and get their driver's license than you 7, eh?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. We didn't want moms and dads waiting around for us, because they were pretty grumpy waiting for dinner.
Mark, today Catholic Central is soaring with 60 staff, coaches, teachers who are former graduates, alumni. That's really something, isn't it?
There, in all of the travels and all of my experience in talking with some of the greatest athletes, I still say Catholic Central, other than maybe IMG Academy down here in Bradenton, Florida, is probably one of the most amazing high schools I have ever been around. From the time when I played, it was a old middle school without even a football field, and the alumni and the parents of alumni were so supportive that, they built an unbelievable facility for future generations to come. It's just a fantastic school, and it's all built around core values that, the Catholic League, I think, is so very proud of. It's part of what makes the Catholic League in Michigan, as well as Catholic Central, just an amazing environment to grow up in.
When we had head coach Justin Sasante in here on Halloween, it was great. He praised Coach Mack, who you played for, his mentor. Last year, Justin Sasante was voted Michigan Football Coach of the Year. Great guy. He's actually got two, I believe, of Tom Mack's kids on his staff, Mark.
Wouldn't doubt it, because they were definitely cerebral coaches. I mean, Coach Mack was. So I got to believe his sons will be the same, because he was just an amazing coach. He reminds me a lot of Coach Carr on Michigan staff, because Coach Mack wasn't exactly the biggest motivator in the world, but he sure knew how to create a game plan, the wham, fundamental football, and develop young men. But he put great position coaches around him, Coach Powers, Coach DeJagger. He put great coaches around to really augment with motivation what he didn't have. But man, did he have a football mind? It was fantastic.
Yeah, Justin, he's really something too. Have you met Justin yet, Mark?
I'm sure our paths have crossed, but I can't say I've had one-on-one time with him.
Yeah, he really believes in it, and he's got the Lead Foundation out here in Heartland or Brighton, and he's taken kids to different cities, to different colleges in the last few months. Seems like they're in a different town every week. I think the change for Coach Mack to Coach Sasani, it's a young guy's game for sure right now, Coach.
I find the idea of coaching nowadays almost mentally impossible, especially at the collegiate level. Man, oh man, I don't know how you play with team. Everything's money, NIL, portal. I don't envy them at all. I admire them in putting together what they can put together and hold together.
I watched Coach Beeline, John Beeline at Michigan. He had a great run, fantastic coach. And it was even before NIL, Mark. He was talking about that. I think one year he had 2 or 3 great freshmen that weren't really ready, I don't think, for the NBA, but they were going anyway. And there was a point you just heard where he was throwing his hands up in the air. Cleveland offered him a boatload of money, the Cavs, and there goes John Beeline. That was sad.
Yeah, well, it's the state of programs today. I look at Underwood, and when you have a kid that's never thrown it down, getting a $12 million contract, and it could be gone. He could be gone next year somewhere just because someone's offering more. There's no holds to it. I mean, it's one of those things I can't imagine guys nowadays getting tattoos like they did back in my day, which I'm still tattooless, by the way. But getting tattoos because they'd be covered in tattoos from different schools because every year they're somewhere else. Shoot, now they can go every other week to somewhere else. It's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, it's really not a great picture, and I think there's a lot of people that don't like it, but it's just like the way golf is today and what happened there. So much about money, and I don't think you're a money guy, Mark, and I know how we grew up, drinking powdered milk and eating bologna, and we had a field next to our house and our bikes, and we played baseball and football morning till night, and to this day, I have to be honest with you, money's not where it's at.
Money doesn't hurt, but it wasn't really attainable. The one thing I got to say that I'm happy about NIL money, I think the portal's more of my issue than the NIL is, because when you've got guys that believe they're going to make the NFL roster, and they don't get their education. They don't focus on that. They don't have that when they're done with the game and the college level, and they don't make the NFL, they're screwed. And I just feel for them because they counted on it. They thought they were something they weren't, because you don't know until you see the level of play and the level of talent at that level, in the NFL. So now every one of these kids, if you're a starter, you're getting money, and if you're smart with it, you're coming out with something in the bank. When I came out of the bank, or out of school, shoot, there was nothing. I diesel Toronado, Dad. I got to get to California. The Rams flew me out there, but I got there and there's no cars, no nothing. I'm like, what do I do? So they brought me in my car. They drove the car out, so I could drive a diesel Toronado. And
Yeah.
It's not like that nowadays. Nowadays, these guys will come out of college with hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, and they're not going to make the league, and they're ahead of the game. So I like that aspect of it. I just don't like the portal with them being able to jump and jump and jump and jump, and no allegiance, no education, and just following money.
Yeah, you can't grow that bond that you would have had on your team with Hammerstein and a lot of the other players I'm sure you were close to. But Mark, back to CC for a second. This year, Coach Sassani has a great staff. 2025 should be a time for the Shamrocks to regain the state championship that they've wanted for a long time since Coach Mack left.
Wholeheartedly agree. It's just I've kind of lost a little bit of touch with being down here for 13 years. Both my sons graduated from there at the new campus, and I don't think I've seen a game back there in a decade now.
Oh wow. Yeah, I know it's tough to get up. You're a long way away, and but you talked a lot about. I saw a lot of interviews, and you talked about the teach me goodness, discipline, and knowledge, Mark, and we shared golf. You and I have a mutual friend. We both golfed with and spent time with. The guy actually lived that credo. Jeff Wiska.
Still does live that credo.
Yeah, he really does. That talking about CC and we talked about a little bit about Bryce Underwood. I saw him on TV against Howell. His last 3 games in high school, and it wasn't all him. It's a team sport, but he lost to Howell the third last game, and then CC knocked him out at Catholic Central. And so like you said, these kids, you just never know till you get them out there, right, Mark?
It's so true. I mean, you think about the NFL just in general. I was just doing some discussions about recruiting and the process of hiring good people. And no matter how good you are at the interview process, the NFL is probably the most rigorous interview process out there. I mean, they measure your fingernails, for goodness sakes. What's your wingspan, your vertical, your high jump, your shuttle, you name it, they're measuring it. And they're still wrong 50% of the time. So, in high school, coming out of high school, you're still naive. There's a song, Young, Dumb, and Broke.
Yeah, I've heard it.
It's hilarious because it's true. And you come into Michigan not knowing, and you've never played against that many athletes before in one spot, and you have no idea how you stack up. You do in your brain and your heart, but you don't know how you're going to react when you get smacked in the noggin by a legit senior. There's a whole big difference between the boy that you are when you come in and the man you are when you leave. Big difference. So
I'm sure.
You just don't know. And, some of these kids are incredible talents, but they never develop into something that somebody uses. And no one knows whether you're going to be right or wrong.
Mark, every show we've done, I think, like we said, this is somewhere between 32 and 35. And all our guests are in support of veterans, charities, foundations. Mark, what's closest to your heart?
uh, one kids and two cancer. Um, like I just had mentioned prior to coming on, you and I were talking and playing in a celebrity charity outing benefiting wheelchairs for children at Innisbrook, Copperhead in Clearwater, Florida. Anything that I can do to help and enhance that is near and dear to my heart. And then, cancer, there's not anybody that can say that they've not been touched by that cursed disease. Um, Anything I can do in that arena to help support the like St. Jude, and that's a double whammy, helping kids and cancer research. So those two things are definitely the ones that gets a yes out of Mark 100% of the time.
That's great. We do a lot with veterans and Darren McCarty, and I think I've done 5 or 6 events with Darren up here. We did a live stream show out in Hazel Park about 3 weeks ago, and anytime he's doing something, whether it's his golf outing or just going out to Lakeland here in Brighton and golfing together, he's a special individual. You had to spend any time with Darren McCarty?
No, I've just watched him. I don't think I've ever met him.
He's a character.
Most of those guys are.
Yeah, hockey players.
Most of those guys, when they smile at you, them and wrestlers. You look at both of them and you're like, "Ooh, I don't know what's behind that curtain. It isn't right."
I was talking with Jeff Wiska about you the other day, and one of his comments, Wiska said, "I don't know." He said, "Mark, he would have been." He said that you would have been the first team state champion heavyweight wrestler in the state of Michigan if had you decided you wanted to wrestle. Well, now Coach Rodriguez was there then too, wasn't he, Mark?
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
I bet he was pulling on you to do that.
Listen, the one thing I do have, I'm sharp mentally, and I knew better than to mess with any wrestlers because those guys are not afraid of anything. They just say go until something stops them. I knew better.
They're not right. Those guys are not right.
Those guys, yeah, no. I just knew, nope, I'll get twisted around in a pretzel and say, what just happened? I knew better.
My son's a little bigger, and he played both ways. And, his best friends, Heartland had some success with Todd Cheney and won some state championships. And a bunch of his buddies, the Bun Boys, were 6'6" and 320, and he'd wrestle with them, although he was a quarterback. But he knew the moves, and one time he was about 20, and he gets me in this hold and pulls my arms up over my head and has his legs wrapped around my legs. Mark, I couldn't move.
I've always loved hanging around wrestlers because if there was ever something throwing down, they'd step forward while I step backwards. And it's just they'd have house parties, and I'm like, no, not going there, because once that keg of beer is about 3/4 gone, logic goes away, and I don't want to be any part of it. I don't want to have any part of it. So yeah, I steer clear.
It sounded, I had read something where you were pretty clean with Bo. He had talked to you or had the talk, and it didn't seem like he was the guy you'd want to mess with.
Now, Bo was, and will always be somebody that I think literally 100% of the guys will stand up and say, I got there. He made a boy a man and made me a husband and a father and made me know what that all is before I ever was. And, he had drug testing well before the NCAA mandated it, saying you will go to class. And when you come back down to this facility, you see your name on that list, you're peeing in a cup. And if you're positive, you're out. You're not playing. He meant it. He meant it. And he meant when, being a captain senior year, he's got me following up with kids to make sure they're going to class, underclassmen, making sure they're in class, because he said, I don't want them losing their way. They're here for their education, and they're lucky because they have this education and University of Michigan football. I'm not letting them mess it up. So Mark, go see them. They're walk-ons. He doesn't care. They're on the team. He wants them to get their education. That was Bo. And that's what, for me, that's what made me not even try pot in college. Because I'm like, I don't know, way am I going to try it? I'm not risking anything. And, not that I wouldn't have loved to try, but that's made decision making really simple. And no one blamed me for it. So the peer pressure went away because they all understood, which I'm
When you
blessed to.
got to Michigan, you were all American already at Catholic Central, and I'm sure probably recruited by every school in the country. And I read that you were deciding between UCLA and Michigan, where your good buddy we just talked about, Mel Farr Jr. played. It was really weird. I talked to Lance Parrish Saturday before Easter, and it's funny. Lance Parrish was also deciding between Detroit Tiger baseball or being a linebacker at UCLA. Did you know that, Mark?
I did not. I did not.
Pretty crazy. But
Well,
Bo recruited you pretty hard, I'm sure. And what made you go to Michigan?
Well, coming out of Catholic Central, an all guys Catholic school, and when you all of a sudden you have University of Miami, I really wanted to go to Notre Dame, but after my visit there, I said I couldn't work for Faust. There's just no way. That was embarrassing. But when you start as a kid, again, you don't know any better. I want to do something. I've lived here all my life. I want to go where it's nice and beautiful and warm. Well, Coach Donahue knew that clearly because I got off the plane in Los Angeles and we went right to Muscle Beach in Venice, California. And there were bikinis, there were beaches, there was girls on roller skates rolling by you with the boombox on their shoulders. And then they drive us to the campus of UCLA, which if you turn left at the light, you go into Bel Air, which is where the Beverly Hillbillies mansion was. And you turn right and you go into the Botanical Garden, which is a campus at UCLA. And as we're walking around going to the athletic department, we go through this student area where these eucalyptus trees and this putting green grass in January. And these girls sitting, leaning up against these trees, they have no bark. I'm looking for a koala bear going, this is amazing. I cannot believe how gorgeous this is. It's 79 degrees and beautifully sunny. How can I not go to school here?
Yeah.
I literally was saying, how can I not go to school here? So the whole visit goes fantastic. Loved every minute of it. I committed to Terry Donahue when I left. I said, I am going to be a UCLA Bruin.
Wow.
My parents, they picked me up at the airport and I'm in the back seat and I say, Mom, Dad, I'm a Bruin. And my mom starts to cry and my dad shakes his head and, in a yes, I understand motion and completely got it. And when we pulled up into our driveway, there was a Delta 88 in the driveway and both doors opened up and out stepped Coach Moeller and Bo. How they knew when I was getting home, I have no idea, but they got out of the car. Bo walks up to me, smacks a videotape because I'd already done my visit to U of M, smacks me in the chest with a VHS tape and says, "You're a Michigan man and you belong at the University of Michigan." And he turned around and got back in the car, closed the door and drove away.
That's great.
So that night I'm laying in bed. I literally said, and at the time, Dad was fighting cancer and he never missed games. I mean, never missed games. And I'm going, man, if I go all the way out to California, for me, Dad's going to see me once, maybe twice a year to come out to watch a game. It's not like you can stream it today, right? So I laid in bed that night and made my decision final. And I did what any 17, 18-year-old kid would do is I called the athletic department at UCLA, which at their time would have been probably 3 a.m. So I knew no one would answer. And I left a voicemail saying, I'm sorry, I have to decommit, and here's why. And called every other, the other 4 other schools that I had taken my visits to and told them that I'm going to the University of Michigan just down the street. 30 miles from here, and because I have that in my backyard. So then I go in and crawled in between my dad and mom and said, okay, I made all the phone calls. And I said, I'm a Wolverine. My mom sat up and said, I thought they were Bruins. I go, Mom, I'm staying home. I'm going to the University of Michigan. She started crying again. Dad's nodding his head, yes. So that's how I ended up at Michigan. It was because I wanted my dad to be able to see me play versus me going out to LA.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Rick, remember Rick Leach when he had that similar story? He had talked about that, Mark, where he was going to go to Arizona to play baseball. He was out there in the halter tops and hot pants, and he came home all fired up, told his parents he was going to Arizona. That evening, knocking on the door, his Bo, same thing, put his finger in his chest and said, same thing, I guess. You're a Michigan man.
He says it. He says it with meaning in a growl. You're a Michigan man, and you belong at the University of Michigan. Amazing how a guy that's 5'8" can scare the living bejesus out of you.
Yeah. Him and Woody Hayes, right? That kind of goes right back, Mark, to the Bo Schembech or Woody Hayes, Michigan-Ohio State 10-year war. What was that all about?
It was before my time, and, I always knowing the rivalry, but the personal rivalry off the field, those two were really, really close friends. And but what really was the rivalry and how it developed the way it did is because they were so close, it became a passionate must win because of the banter back and forth. And
yeah,
now it's just legendary.
Well, they both coached at Miami of Ohio?
Miami of Ohio, yeah. Yep.
Can you remember your first game getting into the big house there, playing for the Maize and Blue, Mark?
You asked that question because you must know the story.
No, I absolutely don't. Oh. I swear to God.
All right, here it is. Do I remember it? Yes, because I started as a freshman, which never happens. And played in the spring game, run down the tunnel before, but our home opener is against Notre Dame on national TV, and I'm a freshman.
Wow,
just that's crazy, and I'm a starter, and this is not normal. And for those that don't know, when you come down Michigan Tunnel, you can't see anything except the bottom of the tunnel because it comes down on an angle. And then it flattens out. So when you're coming running out, you don't see anything until you pop out. Mm-hmm. Well, that banner that we run up and touch is like 10 feet tall. And I am probably the worst athlete that was ever successful. I've got probably a 4-inch vertical. It's terrible. And I was so worried about jumping and missing that banner that when I came running through in the crowd against Notre Dame was so loud that I could feel it. And when I jumped up there, I caught my elbow on it. I was that high.
Wow.
With unbelievable energy, just about fell back and fell down because I jumped so high and touched that banner. And then I immediately got to the other side and tried to hide in the Michigan masses and was praying that the offense would go out first because I was way too nervous. If I had to run out there right now after the kickoff, because we're kicking off to them, I'm going to die. I think I'm just going to die. I'm going to pass out. So, of course, what happens? Defense, you're up. Out I trot and I get out to the middle of the field, and I hardly heard what our defensive call was. The Alan Pinkett's in the background, backfield. Steve Berline's under center, and I'm telling you, it was just like the movies. The crowd noise went away. Berline starts his cadence, but it was in slow motion. Down, ready. And I threw up all over the offensive lineman's hand, who was down in his stance and could not move. He opens his eyes, bright as all get out, like, what just happened? and the ball is snapped, and I flew through and made a 2-yard tackle for loss for the first play of the game and my first play of my career. And that's how it started. And I'm like, well, that's not so bad. Let's go.
That's great.
So
I never heard that story. That's funny.
yeah, that's out there. So that's why I figured you did it and said it so that I'd have to repeat it.
No, no, it's great. Say like a favorite story, maybe with you and Coach Sembeck or the legend, Mark.
Story. Well, I mean, there's so many stories that you could say, but I think one of my favorites was sitting in his office, basically him doing a team assessment and saying he's worried about this guy and that guy and wants me to put him under my wing so that I can give him some guidance, because these guys, and again, he cared so much about each person, whether you're the star player, because he said, if you don't do things the Michigan way, we will play without anybody. Nobody is bigger than the program. Nobody. And he would sit you down if you got too big in the head. I'll never forget him saying, Leroy, if you don't straighten up, Leroy Horde, you don't
Mm-hmm.
straighten up, you're sitting down. And he was on cover of Sports Illustrated, and the athlete of the week after, I think, the Indiana game, and he skipped class twice. And he sat him down the next week, said, you're not playing.
The whole
The way
game?
oh yeah, sat him down, said, you're not dressing because
Wow.
you need to understand what you're here for. He'll do that. And that's what I loved about him. He had me taken under my wing, a couple of walk-on guys. And, they were somebody that were going to be practice squad guys, but they were on the team and they were his boy. And that, I just think, is the character of Bo and what makes the program so special. That we as alumni, former players, would stand up, and I'm positive this is exactly the way the military is. I can't speak personally because I didn't go from our program to military, but I can't imagine the brotherhood being any different because I would run in front of a train for the guys, kind of thing. And I
Yeah.
think that's the kind of thing that you don't have today. There's a lot of eyes when plays are made. Michigan guys come together. They don't run away, making a look at me. That's just our tradition. At least it has been in since Bo. And I hope that stays that way. When it kind of lost its way a little bit, that's when it got a little selfish. And that all got brought back with Harbs, putting it back into the us, not the I. And it shows.
We had my first cousin was on here a month or so ago, Mark, and he's Colonel Mike Pearson. He was actually, I don't want to get it wrong, but basically he ran the military's part of Arlington National Cemetery, including the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. He was a Boy Scout. What's that? What's the biggest honor a Boy Scout could have?
Eagle
Mark,
Scout.
Eagle
Eagle
Scout.
Scout.
Yeah, he was Eagle Scout, and Mike Pearson is. I talked to him last night. We just confirmed we're flying out Saturday early, and we're going to spend Saturday, Sunday doing all the DC stuff, and then we're going to go to Annapolis, the Naval Academy, for the next 2 days. That's close, dear to our heart, is to do as much as we can promote for military and those guys. You were never in. I was never in. None of my brothers were in, but my dad was on a destroyer hit by a kamikaze and picking up body parts at 20. Michelle's dad, my wife, he was a colonel in the Army at Guadalcanal and Corps of Engineers building bridges at Guadalcanal. So that's close.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I
It's
don't have any ties to the military. I just admire it so much, all aspects of it. If I watch Blue Angels, I get goosebumps and chills just because of the precision and teamwork that goes on in that. I see people, military, walking through the airport. I literally thank them because I mean it. That thank you for your service. I would have liked to have done it, and my niece It's only one of the Messners that went in it and through it. And it's amazing some of the benefits that she is having as being a part of that organization. I think the world of it.
Yeah, when we were growing up, Dad would pop the 8 kids in the station wagons, and we'd go to, it could be Pennsylvania, Maine, Rhode Island, Connecticut, mostly East Coast. But that was our trip for the year. 8 kids in a station wagon to go to the military, the naval ships reunion. And that was fun. We developed a lot of good friends over the years, Mark. And those were things Dad would have. Remember the station wagons where you'd have, those little stickers? He'd have a station wagon just loaded with them around the back. And we would sit in the back seat and look out the back window.
Back. Yeah, I had my first car that I drove to CC every day was a white station wagon with the wood panels and the red interior. The back window looked out the back.
Woody Woodback. What the kids played that game? You had the wood on the side of it too.
Yeah, it was a Woody.
Yeah.
I think it was an evil way of making sure I couldn't date anybody.
Probably be worth a lot of money today.
Well, I don't know, but it wasn't fun trying to, go to Catholic Central with the ruthless guys that'll pick on you when they drive up in their Mercedes or whatever else. The rich kids would show up in their fun cars, and I come up with my Caprice Classic station wagon with Pioneer triaxle speakers sitting in boxes.
That was fun though, wasn't it? You had the 8 tracks playing.
You bet.
Mark, you called yourself the ankle biter of all your Michigan records. I know you've got 3 or 4, which is pretty incredible that you still have these records. But I believe one of them said you had 70 tackles for losses. Is that right?
I think it's 74. But yeah, 74 tackles for losses. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I think you have like 3 records there, and that has to make you pretty proud. The fact that of all those defensive players and all the great guys, Hutchison and I know Hutchison didn't start for 4 years. I don't think he did he at Michigan?
No. Mm-mm. Well, see, that's why for me, I think if you look down to yardage and things like that, I think I still have 6 records because they, tackle for loss yardage, then sacks in a single game, sack yardage, you add those things up and there's like 6. But to get those kind of numbers, you got to play and start for 4 years and have 4 years of numbers. Guys that are having numbers like that for years 1 and 2, they're not staying for 4. So it's really going to be something if somebody can break records that took, big numbers every year to accumulate, to have somebody do that in half the time. Because it's
with the transfer portal, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, between the portal and just in general leaving for the NFL, I thought for sure that sacks and things like that would probably get broken because back in my day it was run 3 quarters, pass 1 quarter. Now it's the other way. They're passing 3 quarters, so you have way more opportunities in shorter. You can be there half the time, but have twice as many pass rushes. You weren't having to defend the run as much. So
we had Denny McClain on here about a month and a half ago. We actually went to his condo, and what's amazing with Denny McClain, it was incredible, Mark. Another record, 31 wins in 1 year. I mean, to get 20 in the Major League Baseball today is crazy.
Yeah. It's the same. The game has changed. So depending on, how and what position you're in, those numbers may stand forever because the opportunity to achieve those records just doesn't present itself anymore. So some of those may stand for forever for me. And I think that would be a wonderful way to keep a legacy alive.
Keep you going back to Ann Arbor. I know you get invited back when new guys are going to the Wall of Fame. I think they call it the Wall of Fame there. That's right at the, I was talking to my brother Danny last night. That's right in the golf course there, isn't it, Mark, where you guys do the inductions, that building?
For the Hall of Honor?
Yes.
They do it in Chrysler arena.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, that's where they do the induction ceremony.
Okay.
Basically on the basketball court.
Oh, wow. Did you hear Sharon Moore donated $4.2 million to charities and homeless, Mark?
I did not. I did not know. I love that. No,
Just,
I did
I
not
read
hear
it.
that.
I get a lot of information, but bonus and sponsorship money, $4.2 million. Boy, he went up. I always liked Sharon Moore. I mean, great guy. Everybody seems to love him. He got excited after the Penn State game, was it? Or
He did live TV, and you know what? They coached the kids not to do that, and he went and did it.
that was hilarious.
That was.
We
I
didn't see it.
I sat there and watched, and I'm with my wife. I'm like, oh boy, that's not good. Oh boy.
I like it. People telling it the way it is.
Yeah, well, that's showing you passion, and that's that you could see was genuine. That wasn't rehearsed. That's locker room like, and what he did was welcome you to what it is in the locker room with true passion, love of his team, love of his guys, and saying, Coach Harbaugh, this is for you. And that's what he meant it, and obviously that spilled out for all the world to see. He forgot he wasn't in the locker room.
Was that the Penn State game?
Yeah.
I just was going to say, my brother Danny and my wife and I drove out to Penn State. He had some friends over there that had this cottage-like home, and they've got that creamery there. So they loaded up with this ice cream. We didn't even have to go out to get it. And we went to these nice, fancy restaurants. But, we were there for that game, Mark. And we called it like a crescendo moment or some sort of special moment, because you took the coach for 3 games. Then you get this Harvard genius come in, and he's going to take him again for 3 more games. And the team says, that's it. We're not going to look back. And man, they did not look back, did they, Mark?
No. I loved the quote that just said, bet. They just say, bet on us. You don't know what our resolve is. This team is together, and you don't beat a together team.
Yeah.
And we are together. I thought that was fantastic when it was just bet. Just bet.
I was praying during the Alabama game when Saban's last game as a coach, I believe. The fact we were watching, I kept saying to my wife, I'm like saying, I'm praying that the quarterback runs up the middle. Pray that he runs up the middle, run up the middle, and what, they get him on the 3 or 4 yard line. He didn't even cross the line of scrimmage.
No.
He could have walked around either end, but man, he was not going to score going up the middle against that team.
and I tell you what, we were in his head then, and because of just pummeling him, 5 sacks in one half, or 7 sacks one half. Just, we were in his head, and in his kitchen, rattled his pans, something fierce, but he wanted to try. And this year we did the same thing to him. Just same quarterback. We were in his face all day. And, I think he's a great athlete, but boy, when you rattle him, he's a different player. He's a different player. He's got to really work on that, especially at the next level, because, there's a whole bunch of flying around guys at the next level that will rattle your cage pretty quick too.
Yeah, I could see that. Mark, I've got a book here, Driven Through Tragedy.
Yep.
And this is our first guest. His name is Jeffrey P. Minnock. He was a Brighton varsity football coach, and he was a Heartland or a Howell varsity football coach. And I'm just going to do this for a second. Driven Through Tragedy is the true story of my life from childhood through my many ventures, experiences in adulthood. At the end of my junior year of high school, I was involved in a tragic accident that took the lives of two of my dear friends. The darkest days of my life followed with thoughts of suicide escape. Through the help of my family and friends, I was able to navigate through my legal challenges and reset my life for a purpose. Driven through tragedy is my story of overcoming the tragedy and adversity to always move forward in the life through goal setting, hard work, determination. I never back down from a challenge and believe that my book is inspiring and motivating. He's a pretty special guy and a friend. The Middick family's all over Howell, Mark, and I don't know if you had heard of any of them or not, but just figured I'd give Jeff a plug for his book.
No, I mean, I think some of, those that have tragedy like that and how they react and respond to it, it does mold your life. And I admire people that can rebound from adversity like that.
Well, you can share a minute before that too, because him and his wife Angie, they're on the road. He used to own Time Out Bar and Grill, and how you'd probably been in there once or twice, and on D19 near the highway. And he has what'll be after your heart, Marcus. He has amazing blue 18-wheeler, and him and his wife. I couldn't do it with my wife. There'd be real issues. But him and his wife travel the country, so in that cab. I don't know how my wife's Italian. I'm Irish. No, not gonna happen.
Yeah,
Ever.
I can imagine.
That's kind of funny, but Mark, I gotta say, I really, really like Rick Leach. You and Rick and Jeff Wiska helped us buy uniforms, football uniforms for our old Redford St. Agatha. Heck, you played on Breakfast Drive. You knew Redford. Our St. Agatha CYO football team. I called you and asked you, and you didn't hesitate. You said, sure, I'll come out. And you and Rick and Jeff Wiska all talked. And we raised about 15, 16 grand, handed the check to the coaches. And that was good. Even though the school is closed now, it was pretty cool thing to do, Mark.
Well, again, like I said, my kid from Heartland going out to CC, different world, from Heartland to Redford. But the only way it could happen, because I couldn't afford to go to CC, I had to, one, work at CC to be able to pay for it. And that was done through every break we had. I worked on the janitorial stuff every day, right into with where my dad at work, who had his piano store in Livonia. He dropped me off and we do it. So, I mean, being able to have kids that normally couldn't go to a school like a Catholic Central or a Bishop Borges or a Brother Right, Bryce.
Brother Wrong.
So
you'll have fun. Mel will check you on that one.
But those are things that I can't say no to. Helping a kid do something that I was fortunate enough to do through one means or another. It wasn't a gift from parents or anything else. I want to be able to get good kids in and experience things that they normally wouldn't be able to. So just saying why I would say certainly yes, because that is one of my triggers.
Yeah, that's the way to be. And my friend Lance Parrish, we have really developed a pretty cool friendship, and he was offered a football scholarship, like I said, at UCLA. He's been trying to get Rick Leach and Kirk Gibson to help us out and jump on here, and I think Kurt's struggling pretty bad right now with the Parkinson's, and from what Wiska was telling me, Wiska was out in Beverly Hills golfing with him a little bit ago, but on the show, we're trying to get Rick Leach. I think he's in Traverse City. Do you have any contact with Rick Leach? Mark?
I really don't, but I'm trying to see if I have his number. Uh, Let me look here. Rick Leach. No, I do not. I thought maybe I'd have his number, but I don't.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Once I figured, particularly 2 years ago when it was the year for Michigan. I mean, like McCarty said, oh, he was sitting right here across me. Darren says, oh yeah, he goes, that year you weren't co-champs. You didn't have to share that with anybody. And you beat Alabama and you beat Oregon and you beat Ohio State. And, clearly there was no one could doubt or question you then. I mean, that was it, right?
Well, I mean, the only thing that people hang on it is, oh, you guys cheated, with the
Yeah.
scandals. That's the only thing people hang on that national championship is, yeah, you got it, but you had to steal the signs to do it, which is a bunch of crap that we all know is a bunch of crap because, I was on XM radio, Big Ten Network, and they were asking some questions around that. And I said, what's really funny is the rule says you can't have electronic equipment, but I got to tell you, I had a scouting report from 1984 to 1989 that was an inch thick and VHS tape that was broken down to the tackle or the right side or left side of the offense, videotaped for our review every single week. But that's apparently illegal and you can't do that. But every school does it.
You
It's
get
just,
film. Yeah. I mean,
and it's been forever. So to really come at Michigan for something like that, I kept saying is ridiculous. It will change. I guarantee just by them investigating Michigan and the claim, they're going to find, yep, guilty. They are videotaping the games, and you're not allowed to do that. But so is everyone else. So we're going to have to suspend everyone, or we have to change the rules because they're going to uncover that. Well, sure as heck, they did, and said, I told them right then and there. I said, you're going to have comms to the helmets, just like the NFL.
yeah.
It's the only way you get rid of signs because if you can pick up the signs, you're gaining an advantage. But again, put yourself in this. They call in a play. You pick up that city. You don't have time to change personnel on defense. Our calls are made already. So what kind of advantage you think you're getting by being able to decipher something in 25 seconds is almost silly. But yeah, that's what they were hanging around our necks.
Mark, I don't think anything came of that. There was no suspensions or anything with coaches or anything, was there?
Well, yeah, we had, Harbs missed 3 or 6 games that year.
Oh, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about currently moving into Sharon Moore's time.
My bad. No, I don't think anything's going to come of it, nor should it.
Yeah.
Because if you do anything regarding that, you're going to have to do it because it came out with all the other schools. So I don't see that happening at all. Non-issue.
So you played with Jim Harbaugh. Are you guys friends? What a life! What a life he's had. That 2023 national championship, 2023, and he's to be great. That has to be his greatest moment in football. But he coached in the Super Bowl or the
yeah, he coached in the Super Bowl,
but he lost. He lost that.
Lost to his brother. Yeah.
What a bummer.
Yeah. Hey, mom and dad had a no-lose situation there.
Are you friends with Jim?
Yeah, very much so. As a matter of fact, my daughter babysat his kids through the whole summer up at Camp Michigania. Jim would go up there, and my daughter Bailey would babysit his kids.
That's pretty cool. He seems like he's just a great guy to be around.
Well, Jim is an incredibly intelligent, intense person. He's quirky, has quirks, but is always has been a genuine person that will be in your corner forever. If he's in your corner, you're locked and loaded.
Yeah, that's a huge issue. And you bring up quirky, and maybe in San Francisco, some president had a hair up his ass about him, and he had some trouble there. And they always say, where's his welcome out, whatever, and this and that. But you know what? The problem today is people don't forgive each other, Mark. I mean, come on. I mean, they dig and dig and dig and dig until you find something little, tiny, and then they make a mountain out of a molehill. People need to chill out a little. When we grew up, it was, we'd settle all our problems out on the playground with fistfights. And we played our baseball games and settled some of those with fistfights. But part of that was kids learned to discipline themselves in that type of situation. Mom and dad weren't there. We'd figure it out. And you know who's doing a baseball camp? I just heard this from this friend of mine, Bobby Miller, from Redford Township. His dad was UD College's coach for 40 years. But he told me John Smoltz is putting together a place up in Lansing where they're doing just that. They're going back where you throw the baseball or the bat back and forth, and one hand over the other, and then you put fingers and then bottle caps, and that's what they're doing. They're isn't that cool, John Smoltz?
What goes around comes around. It's history tends to repeat itself in certain things, and when you think about styles and clothes and hairstyles and things, you laugh at it, and then next thing you know, you got bell bottoms again. Just hang on.
Silk shirts and what was that? Those were fun times. We spent a lot of time at Uncle Sam's on Telegraph and Harpo's on the east side, and we were close to the city, Mark. We were only 5 minutes out, being in Grand River and Beach Road there. So we got into the city a lot, and we actually loved Detroit. I was down there with Malfar Jr. He invited me to his dad's.
Yeah, I saw you there.
Yeah, eating the pickles.
Yeah.
So we got to give Lou Holtz an assist and a little credit for the Michigan win over the Buckeyes last year. That 100-year-old guy, he said that Ryan Day's team wasn't tough enough to beat Michigan. So thank you, Lou Holtz.
It did get his blood pressure up, didn't it?
He didn't like that.
Oh boy, he went off on a little childish tirade, right? Just like Sharon did, but for a different reason.
Sharon's was fun. Day's was like
fun, and it was passionate. Ryan's was irrational. Loved it.
Yeah, Coach Day got all fired up, and he was going to run the ball and jam it down our throats, and that didn't work out. We had according to the experts, a 7% chance of winning, and I went out to Clarkston and watched. My son Jeremy and I watch the games every year together. We were at Ohio State 2 or 3 years ago when who's that halfback ran a couple 70-yard runs, 60-yard runs, Mark?
For Michigan?
Yeah.
Edwards.
Yeah, Edwards. That was fun to be there because we hadn't beat them there in a long time. I think 17 years or so, and if I got that right. But it was, man, we enjoyed that time. That was a dad-son moment. Going down there.
I've never been back to the Ohio Stadium, the shoe. I guess it's not a shoe anymore, but I've never been there other than when we had police escorts and I was playing. Because now if I went back there and hit somebody, I'd end up dead or in jail. So I don't go back. I watch it on TV.
It's better to watch on TV sometimes. Remember that crappy COVID season, Mark? Ryan Day said next time we play Michigan, we're going to lay 100 points on them. That was great.
That was. It set the stage. And now we're so into their heads. They absolutely should have shellacked us this year. Now they got to come back to our house where we're not going to be overconfident at all because we're still going to be probably outgunned. But they're going to have in the back of their head, oh, crap.
Here we go again.
We can't figure out, and none of us have beat them before. No one on that school has beaten Michigan. and they've beaten everybody else, but they haven't beaten Michigan. And they're going to come in. Can we? How do we get this done? All that takes is that crack in that door, and that thing floods open because that game is unlike any other game. NFL, I can't say outside of a Super Bowl because I didn't get to that far, but Monday Night Football, nope, Ohio State games got that beat. NFC Championship game gets pretty close because there's a lot of eyes on you and
Yeah.
there's a lot at stake. But other than the Super Bowl and maybe the NFC Championship game, nothing beats Ohio State Michigan game in terms of energy, electricity, passion, and just intensity. Nothing beats it.
Yeah. I'm sure because our hearts are racing. It seems like we're ready to go to play that whole time. And I just have one last one. I was talking to my son about this, Jeremy, again. So I've got to ask you. I asked him for a question. He said, "You were described as Aristotle and a jockstrap. How much how much preparation contributes to your success, Mark?"
Oh boy, that's what trying to think who wrote that. Mitch Albom, right? Was
Was
that
it
who wrote
Mitch?
that? I think that's Mitch Albom. Um, you know, I'm not, and I wasn't kidding when I said I was an ankle biter. You watch highlight, a tribute film or whatever on YouTube, you'll see a ton of my tackles were grabbed them at the ankles. I didn't knock people down most of the time. I tripped them up, and because I was a step behind, and I wasn't that fast. I'm not that strong. I certainly wasn't big enough. But what I did have was my game plan. I'm going to just say Brady because Brady physically is a lot like I was. I mean, he's not fast. He's real smart, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what I did. I played games with offensive linemen because I studied them so much. And that was my advantage. And I had a motor that wouldn't stop. I mean, in the fourth quarter, they're stepping on their tongue. They're so tired. And I'm still going at 99% of the pace I was going from the beginning. So I just was that kind of player. And you don't see that typically nowadays. You see guys that, they're gassed after a little while and they come out for a little bit, then they go back in and their engine restarts. That wasn't me. So, I think I had to be that Aristotle because I didn't have the physical attributes that some of my other teammates did, and I played, I guess, with instinct. I could take angles and catch somebody that was faster than me, but I'd catch them, albeit from behind, and they'd say, "Wow, he must be fast." I wasn't. I took an angle that gave me an advantage, and
Yeah.
that's the things. The recognition. I knew what play was coming because I saw things even from a down position. I felt things from a down position, meaning off fours versus standing up as a linebacker. That's what threw me off when I got to the NFL, as I saw too much. But that really is the truth behind it. It was I had to be overly studied in order to compete.
Yeah, that's a lot like pitchers. Pitchers do the same thing, and like you turning that. There's that movie with Kevin Costner when the crowd. He's a tiger, I think, and all of a sudden he gets up and he looks at the catcher's mitt, and it goes quiet. It's
That's
crazy.
focus. That's
Yeah.
game time focus. Everything else goes quiet, and that's what happened in that first game. Like I said with Berline, is the crowd went away, um, and all I heard was him, and it was slow motion. And you get into what inside the locker room. You go into game speed basically when you get into the game. You can't practice at game speed. It just doesn't happen.
Hmm.
And if you don't have game speed, you're still at practice speed. And I was somebody that had that switch that could go to game speed, and that comes with that tunnel vision. Everything else is going slow motion, but you're not. You can see where it's going faster than someone else can see it. It's just that's a weird thing that happens. It's indescribable, but it's real. That Costner thing is real.
Yeah. I, I I know it's real. I can talk about it with pitching baseball at 12 years old. We'd pitch for a championship game, and my dad would say, concentrate on the mitt, concentrate on the mitt. And, at 10, 11, 12 years old, Mark would go by the side of the house near the field, and he'd say, pitch to me. It was like March, way before there. So you'd pitch, and he'd catch you barehanded. And then the next year, so at 11, he caught it. And, you're sitting there, he's not going to catch me. He's not going to keep catching me barehanded. He was just doing that. He was driving you. And then at 12, you walk out there and you say, Mark, you go, hey, you're not catching this ball, man. You pick it up and you give the wind up and you throw it as hard as you can. And all of a sudden, Dad goes, ole. And it's just sport, right? And then you get in the game and you get in the zone. And he always said, look at the mitt. And you look at the mitt. And, even if you have a crowd all the way around the fences, I know it's not Michigan Stadium, Mark, but I remember that at 12 years old. It's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. It's a real, it's, I don't know whether when they say tunnel vision or focus, but it does drown out everything else. And, they say, quarterbacks heard the crowd going crazy. No, they really probably didn't hear when they say, he had a sixth sense, felt it coming from behind him. When you're in a zone, you hear and see things that have nothing to do with anything but the game. And
if you're not an athlete of some sort, you can't even explain it to anyone.
I watching the Masters just a couple weeks ago in Rory, and I tried to put myself in his head, standing over that putt for the Grand Slam, and a putt any average golfer would drain 90% of the time. And you go, well, he's trained for this, but you don't train for an individual to have that kind of pressure. And I said, I'm jacking that left 100%. And he jacked it left 100, right. And I'm going, oh my gosh, that happened.
But wasn't it beautiful when he won it though? You got to admit, I mean, that was so cool. And,
it was great.
People rip on Rory McIlroy, but the thing is, Mark, hey, what he was doing when he was sobbing when he finally won it, and you can't fake that.
No, that was genuine emotion, and any elite person like that has goals and dreams, and putting yourself in history is something that is almost overwhelming. I mean, it is truly, and he was feeling it in front of everyone. The world saw it, and I think the people that were not real favorable to Rory, I think now understand that that's a quality individual in there, and has hearts, has feelings, and he expressed them there, and I like that. I loved it actually.
Mark, I was going to ask you, your wife Jessfor, she used to have the hair salon at 23 in Grand River.
Yep, Brighton Beach.
Yeah, and you've lived. Yeah, I've got like 15 questions. It took 2 years to get this, so these questions kept piling up, Mark. So, but we're, but let me just see here for a second. This is pretty good. And I know you've got the kids and grandkids now, and even Mel. I talk to Mel about that once in a while, Mel Jr., and he's, that's the best. But I suppose it's only fitting that you answered the call. I've been chasing Rick Leach a little bit. Rick, I love Jeff Daniels. Anthony Tomey for two. Anthony Tomey. He's CC boy. 52
so.
Jimmy Johns, and he's does Super Bowl commercials, Mark. So for 2 years, and you're the other one. And what I wrote down, and I'm from my heart, I said, I suppose it's only fitting that you answered the call. Mark Messner always answers the call. 4 times you've been there for me. You helped raise about 15, 16 grand for CYO football uniforms. You golfed when I called you to come for my son's Heartland football team, and you spoke to the kids. And You prepared a message for Coach Justin Sasanti around Halloween, you and Mel and Wiska, but you did it. And now this. And I just thank you. I appreciate you, Mark. You've always, you're that guy that you have that heart. And that's why you do what you do, buddy.
Yeah. You know, there's another guy, Harold Kruger, great Michigan guy. I mean, one of Livingston County's probably biggest Michigan fan. He would do these Michigan former players versus like Dexter High School's faculty as a fundraiser. And he would always have us do that. He would do these things as a fundraiser for the athletic departments. And he's like, Mark, whenever I'd call, you'd always answer. You'd always get a few of your buddies to come over and suit up, and we'd play the faculty of a high school. And this thing would be packed full of students to watch former football and basketball players dismantle their teachers. It was funny. And Harold, I think this year, 24, Harold missed his first Michigan game, and I think he was like 90, and he died this year or in 24, and it broke my heart. And because he was such a guy, he called actually our corporate office in Ramsey, New Jersey, and left a voicemail looking for Mark Messner, and they forwarded it to me, and I'm like, that's Harold. And I called Harold and said, Harold, what's going on? And his voice, you're a lot like that. I mean, he was always there as a CC. If you need something, it's for a good cause and a good reason. And, I like to think that people like Harold deserve it. And I wish more of us stepped up and helped more often.
Well, you do, Mark. And speaking of that, we're just going to do one quick thing here. We're doing a burger night on May 8th at the AOH Club. Mark, you were there. This is where we did the Leach thing with, we're members of the Knights of Equity. May 8th, we do it at the AOH Club on 5 Mile, just east of Beach Road, 5 to 9, dinner at 6. And as in this says, is all proceeds, every penny goes to St. Christine's Food Pantry, Soup Kitchen on 5 Mile between Telegraph and Beach. So anyway, Mark, that's really all I had. We've gone way further than I thought, so I appreciate it. Any
You're
final
welcome.
thoughts?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of your growing forum of people, quality people that have been on your show, and I appreciate the opportunity to do it. Sorry it took so long to actually coordinate it and make it happen.
I didn't quit.
You never do, Ron. You never do.
No. Mark, where's the pickles?
They're in my refrigerator, of course. Shall I go get them?
Okay, we're gonna do the Jess pickles, and let's see what you think. Mel Farr, he loved the pickles.
How do you not love these? These are really good. And you make these?
Yeah, Eastern Market or Brighton, Mark. Brighton, the farmers market every Saturday. Oh, you got to rate it 1 to 10.
Well, it's a solid 8. I wish they were whole still. That's the only thing, is I'd like to bite into more of them. More of it. So
that's great. Mark, again, I wish you were here, but thank you very much from Bradenton, Florida. You're the best. There's only been in the last 50 years, there's been, Woodson, obviously, but defensive line, Aiden Hutchison and Mark Messner.
She was more like a beauty queen in the movie scene. I said, no, ma, what do you mean? I am the one. On the floor, in the round. She told me her turned the ice cream being the one. In around. People always told me.
I still, I cannot believe that people remember little old me from Heartland, Michigan. I see Facebook and people and posts and things like that. Never ceases to amaze me that people still remember.
Well, says you did the job, Mark.
Well, I appreciate
Thank
it
you.
very much. You betcha, Ron.
Thank you for Catholic Central and the University of Michigan.
My honor.